When the 2022 World Cup began, the global conversation was narrow. Media coverage focused almost exclusively on the usual heavyweights: Brazil, France, Argentina, and England. Morocco entered this environment as an afterthought. Most analysts viewed them as a regional participant, likely to exit during the group stage, and leave the headlines to the established powers. This chart shows decades of tournament data. For every African and Arab team in history, the quarterfinal mark has acted as a hard barrier. It was a statistical ceiling that no team from these regions had ever breached. Outside the camp, expectations were low. Inside, the players were preparing for a different reality, ignoring the predictions that suggested they were merely there to round out the numbers. The world's biggest oversight in 2022 was failing to account for a squad that had already decided to ignore its historical ranking. Much of that focus came from Walid Regragui. He took over the team just months before the tournament, a move many critics labeled a high-stakes gamble for a program seeking stability. Regragui's immediate priority was psychological. He worked to convince a squad of players, many of whom already started for top European clubs, that their talent was equal to any opponent they would face. This shift neutralized the intimidation factor. The players stopped viewing world-class opponents as obstacles and started seeing them as peers. The squad took the pitch with a clear objective: to challenge the existing power structure rather than merely endure it. The first major test of this resolve was Belgium. They arrived with a roster of household names and a high global ranking, representing the elite tier of European football. Morocco countered Belgium's star power with extreme physical output and a rigid defensive shape. They squeezed the space in the midfield, making it impossible for Belgium to find their rhythm. The resulting victory stunned the international media. For the Moroccan squad, however, it was the expected outcome of a disciplined tactical execution. This result did more than add points to the table. It provided concrete evidence that the traditional gap between the elites and everyone else was closing. Spain presented a different challenge. They're a team built to control the ball, using short, rapid passes to wear down opponents and force mistakes. Morocco responded with a masterclass in defensive positioning. They allowed Spain to keep the ball in non-threatening areas, turning their possession into a stagnant, ineffective routine. When the match reached a penalty shootout, the pressure shifted. You could see the hesitation in the Spanish shooters, while the Moroccans remained composed under the lights. By eliminating Spain, Morocco established themselves as a structural anomaly, a team that could not be dismissed as a one-hit wonder. The quarterfinal against Portugal brought them face-to-face with a squad defined by its history and its legendary captain. For Morocco, this was the final barrier before the record books. The decisive moment came when Youssef and Nassiri out-jumped the Portuguese defense. It was a display of pure verticality that broke the deadlock and put the favorites on the defensive. They spent the final minutes absorbing wave after wave of attacks, defending their goal with desperate intensity until the referee blew the final whistle. With that win, Morocco became the first African and Arab nation to cross the threshold into the semifinals, achieving a milestone that changed the world's expectations for these regions forever. The success of 2022 created a new set of difficulties. Morocco no longer has the benefit of being underestimated. They are now a high-priority target on every opponent's schedule. This diagram represents how analysts across the globe are now dissecting the 2022 footage. Coaches are actively looking for ways to pull Morocco's defensive shape apart and exploit the small gaps they left behind. The next challenge is mental. The players must find a way to maintain their edge and discipline now that they are expected to win, rather than simply being invited to compete. Breaking a record is a historic achievement, but staying at that level while the entire world is watching for a mistake is what defines a top-tier program. As we look toward the 2026 World Cup, the field is larger and more prepared. The question isn't just if Morocco can win, but if they can adapt to a landscape that has spent 4 years studying them. While their tactics will need to evolve, the squad carries something earned in Qatar: the institutional knowledge that they belong in the semifinals. Regardless of the outcome in 2026, the Moroccan team has already accomplished the difficult task of forcing the footballing world to take their presence seriously. The roar of the Atlas Lions is no longer a surprise. It is an expectation.